All right, we are live, and I'm going to wait just a few seconds. Um, so to make sure, okay, it looks like everybody's talking to each other. It looks like Stream and YouTube are getting along, and so welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm Ed Rabyd, your host. I am the Rabyd Atheist, former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to Deconversion Hangout. This is a live stream for support for those of people deconverting or want to talk about deconversion or how to help people in their life that are deconverting. As such, it is moderated a little heavier. No preaching. Theists are certainly welcome at all times as long as they behave themselves and don't try to proselytize. We're here as a group of people that are deconverting or have deconverted, trying to support one another. And so, that's kind of the purpose of this stream. I have another stream called Rapid Fire where it's open forum, and you're more than welcome on Tuesdays to come in and say anything. Last week, the last one was pretty good because I had a couple theists that illustrated my points so well. So there's that. But that's kind of the purpose here, to talk deconversion and deconversion issues. And so I'm going to get a quick roll call here. Fred is here, chairman of the board here. Welcome. I know you've watched a couple of the other stuff, but welcome. And I'm glad to see people here. And then Anne Marie is here as well. And we're growing a little bit. My chat usually takes about 15 minutes for everybody to get here. So thank you, everybody, for showing up. But I do want to get to chairman of the board's. Do I have a support group for atheists who despise other atheists? You're a hell self-hating atheist. I get what you're saying about the humility and pride thing. One of the things that I have tried to cultivate in my deconversion is a little humility. I mean, if I was so wrong about religion, there's a pretty good chance I might be wrong about other things. And developing an understanding that as a finite human being, I can be very wrong about a lot of things is part of a deconversion process. Because one of the things that religion gives you is this big ego. In Christianity, God loved you so much that if you were the only one who needed it, he would have come down and saved you. You're a king's kid. The whole ego trip of you're part of this elite group that's saved. And, there's a definite ego trip with religion, but I get what you're saying, because I've also been in churches where they're very humble about that, and then they get it. So, this is actually an issue. I don't like most atheists that tend to replace worship of God with the worship of the government. I've made this remark several times about when you deconvert from a religion, like say you come out of a fundy, very conservative background, for instance, the temptation, because you have all these emotions flowing about how you've been lied to, how you've been all this other stuff. The temptation is to jump ship and just go completely left. And I see a lot of atheists that do that. Like they get so mad at their former life and how it robbed them or whatever, that they flip over completely to the other side, and they think they got to be a liberal and they got to be all this other stuff. And that's not necessarily the case. And I also agree with you that some atheists do replace the worship of God with the worship of, I would call secular humanity, trying to do things through government. But government is also a human institution. It's run by human beings, and thus is just as flawed as religion. I would say my political science degree tells me that the tactics of the politician and the tactics of the preacher are very similar. And so I'm not, there's a part of me that says that mankind is inherently religious, and put that in quotes, and we have a tendency to want to gravitate to something that is religious-like, because it feeds our tribalism, it feeds our sense of belonging, it feeds our sense of purpose. which we have. But as a libertarian atheist, I have as much distrust of government as I do religion. And so I've learned that government plays a lot of the same games. Like if you listen to a politician do a speech and then go listen to a preacher do a sermon and ask yourself how many similar tactics do they do, you would find a very long list. So there's that. But yeah, I don't know if Earl's here yet, but thank you for both of us. So yeah, it's for us. Autism is kind of one of those things that both me and Earl are kind of very passionate about. Both of us being on the spectrum. So, and okay, so you had your son's autistic. You had to learn how to do ABA tear because you couldn't afford it for him. Yeah, that's one of the things that me and Earl think about a lot. I know I do for sure. Is I think about the funding and how the testing is A, expensive, and B, it's hard to get at times. Like you got a 3-month waiting period now, and it can cost you $1,000 to $3,000 depending on your insurance. And yeah, I get it. It's one of the advocacy things that we're talking about. I don't know. Next year for Autistic Awareness Month, I want to do a fundraiser. I'm just not sure how to do that yet. So we'll do that. Yeah. So you're helping your mother as who? Okay, there you go. Let's see, there's a difference between the atheist and the deconstruction side of the internet, says Kyle. Hi, Kyle. Yeah, I would say that that's very true, because deconstruction doesn't necessarily mean that you become an atheist. Like some people become spiritual or deists, or they don't necessarily, they deconstruct from their former faith or their former religion, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they become atheists like I did. A lot of people don't necessarily become atheists when they do their deconstruction. So yes, yeah, it's referred to as statism. There are people that think that humanity can solve its problems through government, and it's like, if you're imposing your solution, once you realize that the force of government is coercive, okay, and also just because it's government, it doesn't get a free pass from the moral questions. Like if the government does something immoral, it still could be judged as immoral and told that it needs to stop. I think that's where, having all the checks and balances and stuff that are important. So. Shitting. I think I enjoyed about shitting Christians that I got to pick my ethical structure. I chose Greek virtue ethics, whether the structure is logical. I have that in my stoicism, but I also found that there's a lot of other virtues that I wanted to follow, so I added them. The 9 noble virtues is a pretty good list. The idea of virtue ethics of just it on a pragmatic level is just a really good way to live your life. What are the qualities in humanity that you admire the most? And, how can I exemplify that without harming somebody else? So left-handed Jedi. Oh, I, for one, can't wait for a feline overlords to return past. Okay. Yeah. Around here, we're kind of, I'm still thinking about the theology of Fangs, our mascot, the Fangs bunny, who removes religion from vegetables that have been corrupted by it. And what is the end game? What it is Fangs going to actually return and well, actually, he's here. So is the end game for Fangs rulership over all vegetables? We'll see. Yeah, I welcome, Katie. I'm good to see you. I think that there are some. I think the real problem with deconverting is I think most deconverted people that I talk to are kind of lost, after that, because they've had this whole moral framework from their religion ripped out, and they're trying to find their way. And I know for me, finding a system of virtue ethics as a system took me a couple years. Took me wandering through that wilderness for a bit, but I'm very happy that I do my own morality now, because I don't have to listen to my Bible and that tells me that slavery is okay and genocide's okay in certain circumstances. I don't have to do that. I can say, no, those are not okay no matter what. And but yes, I do see some turn to politics and government as their new outlet for their enthusiasm, so to speak, where they were enthusiastic about their religion and doing all that. Yeah, now they take that same effort and they put it into politics, government. Um, I've watched a few live streams where some atheists were accused of, politics is your new religion, and they tried to deny it. And I'm like, dude, you're on here every day, just like you were when you were religious, beating the horse of this social issue or that social issue or whatever. You got to be careful, because you can create your own, in a sense, activist religion. I got very alarmed, and still am very alarmed sometimes by some of the activism that comes out of the atheist camp. It's like, do you have the ability to disagree with anybody anymore, or is it pure dogmatism? Okay, you have this social view and political views that are dogmatic, and you won't listen to anybody. You just got to promote that. So I've seen some people head that way, but a lot of atheists, I think most people just don't bother. They deconvert and they go on with their lives. But they struggle with stuff, for a long time. Okay. I'm in therapy. I just talked to my therapist yesterday about several issues, notably family issues and some of the things that happen on this channel, dealing with the anxiety of some of it, because I am autistic and I get socially anxious a lot. So there's that. Yes, fangs nibbled for our sins. Christianity offers immortality. Hard to give up that kind of hope, even if it's a prayer. This is, honestly, Fred, this is probably one of the deepest things I deal with. Like, I have this one theist who came onto my channel. I think he's one of the guys that I let into the stream once. So but he's always asking me, what I offer as an atheist, because I'd have to tell him, well, I don't offer a false hope of eternal life. I don't offer a false sense of security in life that somehow it's going to never end. I don't, as somebody who's deconverted, I've had to shuck the whole idea of that meaning and purpose has some eternal purpose, the nihilism that we have about overall purpose is pretty high, but in this life, I could still find my own purpose. There's a whole packle of issues that you're talking about here, Fred. It's like there's, there's just this, how shall I say it? This change of looking at death. So yeah, but a lot of religions offer these afterlife scenarios, which aren't proven. I've said it before, name me evidence of any afterlife scenario that people come up with, and the evidence is pretty much zero. They try to do near-death experiences, but all that proves is people have near-death experiences. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get it, Kyle. I mean, the idea is a carrot and stick of an extreme nature. And yes, I absolutely get that. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who fear death. And so even the promise of the carrot, so to speak, is better than no promise at all. But yeah, I've been asked that question, what do I offer as an atheist? And the only thing I can really say is intellectual integrity. Like, you're being honest about what reality is. and you're not like engaged in false hopes, and you're trying to get the best life you can out of it. So yeah. Let's see. Not to mention the social community support religion most definitely provides society's survival. Religion can make it so easy that truth no longer matters. Yes. The community aspect of faith and religion is probably one of its strong suits and why it survives. I mean, Catholicism, they're trying to elect a pope. I don't know, did they actually make any progress today on electing a pope? So, but yeah, I just, but yeah, there's this social aspect of being part of something bigger than yourself, part of a mission that's larger than you. Those are very appealing qualities, being part of a community that's lasted for centuries. Yeah, there's a lot of appeal there that strokes our ego and strokes our stuff. And all I can offer as an atheist is no, you're going to die someday, and that's going to be the end of it. And you probably should live your life that way. Okay. And quit wasting your time, money, and energy. I end my streams almost universally with that. So I don't seem to like being part of any group thing. This whole hog or nothing concept and individualized are not accepted if different from the group. Yes. I think that's my thing too, Katie. It's like the problem I have usually with the atheist community is the dogmatism about certain social and political views. Like I know atheists who voted for Trump. Okay. I know atheists who, like myself, didn't vote at all because I didn't like my options. I'm not going to condone either one of these forms of evil because neither one of them to me was good. I just, there's just this whole packle of social issues that I just don't necessarily think we should stop the discussion on, because I think the discussion would lead to enlightenment a little bit instead of just the dogmatism. So yes, this is a deconversion issue because it's like, I encourage people, don't change your politics or your social views for about a year. Think about them all first. Go through every issue and take each individual issue as it comes as you deconvert, and ask yourself the questions. Because I know pro-life atheists, and they get all kinds of shit, but they have their reasons. And then you have, atheism is all over the political spectrum. It's all over the social spectrum. So, there's a great divide in atheism right now about trans. So it's like there's no unified political social view, and those are different issues. And the thing about that sort of thing is like it's you got to think through it now. Okay, you can't accept the authority saying that this is the way you're supposed to think about it. And so yes, so there's tons of people that have different viewpoints. Now the question is, yes, I don't like some of the things that those people's views are, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to entertain their arguments and listen to what they have to say, because everybody has something that they say that, well, yeah, that's true, or that's factually accurate. And so you get out of the group think when you do that. So yes, very much agree with that. Shikano, thank you. TV, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think Hitchens has some neoconservative views on things. I would say, he was kind of a Marxist. So there were that part of, the economic parts. I don't think he was as conservative as some other things. But he also, I know he got in trouble for his, he said in an interview that no wife of his was going to have to work for a living, that he was going to provide for her. And he doubled down on that a couple of times. I don't know, the trans issue wasn't as big at the time of his death, so he never really got a chance to weigh in on that. I'd be very interested to know, but I'm not going to speak for him. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that, like he was very much a founding fathers kind of guy. He loved Jefferson. He loved the whole Enlightenment idea behind the U.S. constitutions. I mean, I think you would have a large problem with a lot of what's going on right now. Like, follow the Constitution, quit trying to get out of it. So, Greek version helps defeat it comes to postmodern version of atheism. Is also a good way to beat the nihilism. Yeah, I suppose. God said it was not good for man to live forever after the garden. Jesus offering him probably wasn't a good by the biblical standard. Yes, this is one of the contradictions of scripture. Is like Genesis kind of says it's not good for men to live forever, and then turns around and offers eternal life. Okay, nice. So there's that. The promise of honesty should be the standard. Yeah, I guess I could see that. My thing is, I want dialogue on issues because I've never, I guess, having been so wrong about my faith, my deconversion tells me, okay, I could be very wrong about a lot of things. And so I want to hear different viewpoints, even if I don't necessarily, I might even have strong disagreement because in that disagreement, I might find something that, can help me with other things or provides more enlightenment onto that issue. I've tried to run this channel. I mean, look at the chat sometimes. I know a good chunk of you are very different on your viewpoints on some things. Over the past half year, I've seen it. But at the same time, you still keep coming and you still keep talking to each other. And that's something that I still want to continue to promote is the ability to have a conversation. I don't know. I'm a big Robert Heinlein fan, and one of his characters says that the death of civility is the first step to the fall of a civilization. And I haven't seen much civility, okay, in the Western world in a while. So I don't know. So I was met with a lot of negative remarks when I expressed that I still believe in gut feelings. Okay, yeah. If Earl got on here, she would say that she's met some resistance in some other channels, but she still, there's still some views that she agrees with. So. Hey, Michael, good to see you. I know it's like late evening for you. Very early morning. It really depends. I have an international audience. Fred's an Aussie, so he's up early this morning to be on my channel. Yeah, obedience seems to be rather important in the Old Testament version. JC didn't change it. No, he actually, what he did is he added the element of if you want to demonstrate your love to Jesus and to God, you're obedient. If you love me, you obey my commandments, sort of thing. And so the whole aspect of obedience and love, servitude and love being joined together, that's very much a Jesus Christ thing. Assuming, of course, Jesus actually wrote those words. I think a lot of the Gospels and like a lot of the later pseudo letters of Paul and a lot of the other pseudo letters of like Peter and others definitely show a Christianity that's moving from an apocalyptic vision of the future being over in 70 AD to, oh, we have this long-term thing. We probably should maintain authority and order. So, yeah, Hitchens was less of a dick than his brother is. Hitchens' brother, I think, is still around, and he's not as popular for very good reasons. Yeah, I wish we could have. I wish the atheists on both sides of this could have a civil discussion about trans, but it doesn't seem to be possible. So I wish there was like a good way to set up a good, solid, factually based debate about that, or each side was allowed to present its case and everybody listened intently. But I'm not sure that that's going to ever be possible. So I'm very honestly I wish that could happen because I think you'd get a lot more dialogue. And right now, with some of the stuff that's happening in my country where religion is kind of being pushed as, this thing that binds society and all that stuff, it's like I wish we could have a little bit more unified pushback, but I think sometimes these side issues keep us, and I'm not saying trans is an important issue. I'm just saying it's not as, none of us are going to be able to talk about what we want to talk about if, we become a theocracy. So that's kind of that. So if one viewpoint wins the day completely by force, I think that's going to be a problem. But hey, Cranky, good to see you. I also wonder that at times. I mean, me and Azo and Earl and a few others got together at a live stream a few months ago, and we, I'm supportive of anybody's decision with what they want to do with their body and all that stuff, but it's and supporting that right to make your decisions for yourself, I'm absolutely behind. But there are larger issues now facing the atheist community in a sense that all of us are going to be affected. And we can't have side issues like this that divide us from that. And it kind of is. So yes, the central tenet of the Bible is obedience. And that's something you get over when you deconvert is like, I don't have to be obedient anymore. What am I obeying? Why? What are my ethics? What is my morality? So that becomes a real big issue. It was the biggest issue I dealt with after I left Christianity. Like I'm in the pulpit and I'm preaching, okay, what are good ethics and how can I use this Bible thing to actually preach good ethics? It was a good long 3 to 5 year struggle. I think the struggle started to end when I started this channel. I'll put it that way. Like, okay, yeah, I can do this. But when you've been indoctrinated all your life that your ethics come from God, it's a hard transition, Cranky. It is. It's difficult because you've been so focused on this other stuff that it's important that we, have a unified front against the idea of abject obedience as the way to have a moral society. I don't think that that's true. Moral societies evolve and they get better, okay, over time. So if you're wrong, proclaim it to the world and prepare for the consequences. I agree that most people don't accept the concept of social construct, but I'll say something probably that's dangerous here. If you're going to say something's a social construct, that's a claim, and you really have to put your evidence behind that claim. Okay, if you know what a social construct is, but you have to prove that it's a social construct. If you say something A is B, you have to prove A is B. Okay, you have to lay out your proof for that, and that's something that I continue to look for. Is I agree that it's a social construct, but I have my reasons for it saying it is. So that's kind of there's that. But I also the biology people aren't exactly whistling Dixie. They got their evidence too. So it's like I don't know if I'm beginning to think the whole social construct biology thing is one of those false dichotomies that there's something else that we should be engaging, something different. I'm just not sure what that is yet. You will, Anne. I think because faith will tell you that in certain circumstances you can be a dick. Okay, I used to, we see it all the time here. Like theists will genuinely come on here and be mean to me, and they feel justified because I'm an atheist. I don't feel justified getting on theist channels and being a dick. Okay, I just don't. I I think politeness and having good discussions is a better way to go. And yeah, it gets to be interesting some. So let's see. You can talk about the golden, but it's only mentioned 3 times in the obediences. Yes, the golden rule. I agree with one commentator that the golden rule is like a secular ethic that all religions have bought into. It's like a human thing that every religion seems to pull from. Buddhism has a statement about it. Every religion seems to have a statement about treat people like you want to be treated, or don't do to people what you don't want to be done to yourself. So teaching BS, teaching from the Bible is ethics from the Bible is a perfect manual on what not to do. Yeah, I would agree with that now, mostly because I've engaged my ethics um, a little bit harder since I became an atheist and since I left the faith. Like, I have to have good reasons and good information before I take any ethical type of action or moral action. When the right comes for their computers, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm not I having studied politics, the whole left right thing is kind of a falsity anyway. I mean, whoever would have heard of the Republicans talking positively about tariffs like 10 years ago? Like, I've learned that these two parties will switch their platforms on a dime. Okay, if it'll get them a bigger voting block. Okay, like they will change. But the Republicans have always been against tariffs until Trump. So now all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, they're a good thing. Okay. Okay. Reagan's rolling over in his grave right now for that idea. So, because he hated them. It's like they've always been much more free trade than that. And now it's like, oh no, we don't want to do that because they're trying to win the union voting block. And unions love tariffs. So, because they were willing to drop bombs on people that he himself despised, Muslims. I'm not sure if he really believed the ends justified the means. I mean, he debated Muslims, I believe. He talked against Muslims, but I don't think he ever advocated for blowing them up. Hitch's, he lived in an ideological space where debate was possible. So, but I don't think you could find a quote where he says it was good to bomb Muslims. I don't think that would be. Let's see. For me, morals came natural, not labored for sins. I don't see as if that makes much sense. Yes, I agree. I think when you follow what's more naturally in your brain as far as moral and ethics, and you just, you're a human being that wants to be treated well, so you treat other people well. It's actually a lot easier in that respect. When you're trying to constantly say, well, what does God want? And God doesn't exist, at least the one you think is there, it doesn't exist. I don't know. You begin to, you spend too much of your time worrying about what God wants other than instead of worrying about what the right thing is. So, yeah, he did. Yeah, I mean, if you love me, obey my commandments. So he kind of, loving your neighbor as yourself is secondary to loving God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And loving God involves obedience. So yes, it's a tiered list of 2 commandments. So if loving your neighbor conflicts with loving God, you don't love your neighbor. So. Except for the things they prefer to fight over. Yes, Ronald. Denominationalism is one of my favorite things. Like, we had the guy on Tuesday saying that Christianity brings clarity, and I'm like, how? I got off the line. I'm like, you know what I should have said? I should have said how does Christianity bring clarity when there's so many denominations and so many viewpoints, and even the Bible itself brings chaos because of interpretation? And you know, they love the turning the other cheek when it's them doing the offense sort of thing, and then they want freedom from that. So yeah, it's good not to be a slave to anything. I think this is the thing in deconversion that really is the hardest for a lot of people, is the idea of, like, especially Christians, anybody with Abrahamic religions background, Islam, is because slavery, the idea of slavery, is actually a theological concept that you have to follow as a believer. Like Paul says it over and over, Paul, a bondslave of Jesus Christ. Or you get throughout the, slaves, be obedient to your masters as if being obedient to Christ. The whole idea of slavery is inherent in that system, in the Christian system, of how you relate to God, that you are God's bondslave, you are his willful slave. And the problem with that mentality is it doesn't allow you to think for yourself when something contradicts your basic moral senses that I think human beings have, most human beings have. And that becomes a problem. And not being a slave even to your own opinion is a sign of being engaging things. Like being able to engage in an idea without necessarily holding it is a strength to me, and that includes my own. So yeah, it's easy to replace the God with a universe. I don't know if the transcendental argument is logically consistent, but yeah, I get what you're saying, though. I think you could replace God with the universe in a lot of these arguments for God and still get the same result. So, yes. Yeah, there's the oldest idea of the idea of the golden rule is very old, as Ho points out here. The eloquent peasant, which is like way back in the BCE, says something much like that. So yeah, because Jesus is he's quoting the Old Testament when he says it. So, but there's also, like, Buddhism has it, Confucianism has something like that. There's cultures that had nothing to do with Christianity that also have a golden rule. And so it's like, to me, I think religion's just, well, that's a good idea. Let's all steal that. It's a basic human concept. If I treat this person next to me well and they treat me well, we're going to have a better chance of survival together. And I think that's just a human thing, and every religion borrows it. So, yeah, it doesn't require us to have a cosmology. Just we lack conviction on the subject, particularly existence of God. Yeah, I think he did support, like, the overthrow of Islamic governments, and I guess there's a consequence of that. Is you're going to have Hitchens would have realized the consequence of that is death. Okay, that you're going to have a war at some point. So, but yeah, I'm not going to pray for the next pope. He's just going to be as popery as the rest of them. So, yeah, you can. I think the thing about deconverting is that you begin to see much more clearly what you were involved in. Like, it's like, and we don't. That's the hard part for a lot of theists. They don't want to admit that they got conned. They don't want to admit that they're being a hypocrite about a lot of things. They don't want to admit, and so they hold on to their faith because they feel that's the best defense against that. But you, Anne Marie, and myself, I've been out long enough. In fact, I think, yeah, the 27th of May, it'll be 10 years for me no longer being a Christian. So, um, it's when I look back at it now, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of contradictory, hypocritical positions that I used to hold, and trying to get rid of that. and be less hypocritical and less contradictory in my viewpoints is still something. And I don't think he hated the influence of religion in general, Katie. I think Hitch was much more about when he wrote, you know, God is not great, how religion poisons everything. He was not, he says it several times, I'm not, this is not, you know, me being hyperbolic. This, I genuinely believe that religion poisons everything. And I do too. Okay. So that's, you know, that's why I'm an anti-theist. It's like, I think we'd be better off without it. Okay. We've reached a point in human evolution where religion may have filled some gaps in the past. It's not necessary anymore. In fact, I think it's detrimental. It's like a lot of things that you have in your life that at one point were beneficial, and now you look back at it and you go, you know, that's just not helping me anymore. In fact, it's like hurting me now, and I need to get rid of it. And I think with humanity, religion has become like that. For a while, religion helped us fill the gaps, and you know, not a very, you know, as Hitch said, it was our first and worst attempt at understanding the universe. So there's that. Let's see. Keanu TV 10. Thank you very much for the donation. You said it's a direct negation of Allahu Akbar. Oh, yeah. Yeah, God be praised. Yeah. Oh, gosh, see, my Islamic knowledge is not as good as my Christian one. Islam has always been an outsider religion to me, and never was something I even remotely considered embracing because the origin story was so bullshit. So it was just like, really, you believe a guy who went into a cave who says he can't read, and yet somehow he's given this stuff from an angel, and you believe all that. Okay, right. I have some snake oil over here. Would you like some? You know, can make a buck there. Yeah, love your neighbor unless he's on land God has promised you. Yes, this is probably one of the biggest hypocrisies of the Old Testament is they do have love your neighbor and do unto others as you would have them do unto you in that book. But then it's like, if they're in your way of conquering the land, please make sure you genocide them. So yes, let's delete them all. So it's a good slave and with no do as I say, not as I do should be the Christian motto. Yeah, probably. There is no God to whom I be enslaved. Yeah, I'm kind of like at that point, but I also like the same is true for a lot of ideologies. I'm not going to be enslaved to an ideology unless it can demonstrate itself. So I'd argue it's not a lack, but the absence. Lack implies that something should be there. I don't lack cancer. Okay, there you go. Hey, Wolf. Yeah, schedule changes. That sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, I have to do this slot because it's the time that I have to do stuff. I don't like both of my live streams during the week are kind of like this is where I can fit it in because of my work schedule and other things in my life. Um, so there's that. Yeah, they jumped to some other fantasy. We kind of talked about that earlier, Katie. Like you jump from one ideology to another, and you have the same kind of extreme religious dedication to it. You got to watch that stuff. It can be very detrimental. I think the thing I guarded against in my deconversion the most was becoming an extremist with something else. Like, don't you can get so caught up emotionally in being an extremist for anything that you can't see clearly about other things. Yeah, cranky. You know, I'm fairly certain he hated cranky elder gods too. Though he would probably recognize that he would probably have said that was fictional. that you guys are just a product of fiction. So he wouldn't have hated you. So. Yeah, the Hussein takeover, he hated that. I know Hitchens hated that because it was very brutal. Yeah, it was not nice. Yeah, it's very ridiculous. Mormonism's equally so because you got a guy looking in a hat at supposed golden plates that 8 people supposedly saw, but then later disavowed that they saw them. It's like, it's like, I'm going to come up with an equally ridiculous story for the origin of the Fangs cult, I think, to illustrate how absurd this is. And it's going to be very similar into the origins of Islam and Mormonism because I consider those 2 origin stories the most ridiculous of any religions. But like the whole point of doing Fangs is to illustrate the absurdity of religion by being just as absurd and using the same arguments to prove Fangs' existence as well as God's. So, yeah, me too. Like when I first heard about the origin story of Islam, I'm like, people believe this? And then I had to think because I was still a Christian. I'm like, well, yeah. And they believe Mormonism too. Mormonism, holy smokes. You want to talk about a religion that was created because one young man was really horny and wanted to bang a bunch of girls. So he brings back polytheism, polygamy, It's like, that's one of them. There it is. So I gave up being a missionary for atheism about that. Why do you do it? I found that it's just accepting as different as mine is better than for my mental health. I guess for me, I'm not trying to be a missionary for atheism. My whole thing is to get atheism accepted as normal, to normalize it, and to get deconversion accepted as normal. Theists have a nasty tendency to not accept people deconverting, or they try to change it, and it makes it difficult for people. So that's kind of where my jam. I'm not trying to convert anybody to atheism. My main objective has always been, quit defining atheism wrong, quit giving the wrong reasons for deconversion. These people should be respected, not disrespected because they have a different point of view than yourself. So, Fred, it's not deconversion, it's abandoning the emotional investment. Yes. I've had theists get mad at me at that, but when I tell them that the reason that they're still in the faith is emotional, not rational, okay, and the reason I chose to do that route is because I think it's so true for me and everybody. I've been talking to deconverting people for 5+ years now, and it's always when I got over the emotional attachment, I was good. It was just that all of a sudden it all unraveled, and it was the emotional attachment that kept me in. And the more I talk to people about it, same, family, friends, wanting to see loved ones that were dead. There's this whole packle of emotional stuff that religion pulls you in with, and that it's the emotional attachment that's hardest. Yes. Let's see. I want to get to somebody else. Let's see. And thanks, Fred. Appreciate you. And then Kevin, you did good work there. Thanks, Ed. Thank you so much. I appreciate the compliment. I'm trying to, push back against people who misdefine things, and that's kind of what I do. I'm not, becoming an atheist to me is a personal choice that you're going to have to wrestle with yourself. I can tell you that the evidence isn't good for a God, but I'm not trying to, if you want to hold on to a deist view or other views, that's fine. Just don't don't get into my grill about forcing me to be things. Yeah. He never taught me religion. I think his best parenting he could have done. As a result, I've been an atheist forever. I think we spoke about this 2 days ago about indoctrination, childhood indoctrination, and how it has such an influence on people. Even there's a lot of people that hold on to it. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And by the way, we met the goal for today, so thank you very much. I appreciate that. I've said it before. I YouTube for 3 reasons: to make people think, to hopefully entertain you in some way, shape, or form, and yeah, I'm root hogging or dying. I'm trying to make some money to support what I do here. So, thank you very much. I appreciate that. As a child, society taught me being gay was weird. Then I made 2 friends who were seriously decent, and I grew up. It took a while. Fred, I want to warn you about that growing up stuff. I think it's a trap to a certain extent. I now that I'm like single and all my kids are grown up and I'm like live alone, I'm like, it'd be nice to just go down to the creek and throw stones. It's like I miss that childhood aspect of my life where you could just, I literally this summer I have plans to like play with toys, like a kite. I'm thinking about buying a kite and a rocket and, getting outside a little bit. Horrors, vampire leaving his lair. But yeah, I miss my childhood a lot. It was very idyllic. I had a good childhood in a lot of ways. So, yes, Islam also believes that Muhammad flew in a winged horse and split the moon in two. Yes. Yeah, trying to discredit it by showing them a mirror doesn't work. You have to kind of get to the emotional attachment that people have towards their religion, and it really is an emotional attachment. What's the position of the carrot and the theology of fangs, the blessed sacrament, intolerable evil? This could be the first great. Yes. See, Fangs' whole thing. I've already come up with Fangs' origin story, and it goes back to Lisa the rainbow giraffe, who ate all the creator gods and then basically shit out the universe. Part of that shit is Fangs. Like, he was a perfectly rabbit-shaped poop, and he became Fangs. And Fangs' purpose is to remove the religious influence from vegetables. The carrot, and I'll have to talk with our artist about this because she hasn't really. The carrot is the perfect vegetable that isn't have a religious influence, and that's why in the first picture you see a Fangs trying to eat the carrot. The carrot is objecting, like, there's no nutrition here for you. Okay, and then later on we get Fangs going against the yam instead. The yam is a corrupted vegetable, so. And then we have onions that are corrupted vegetables. So the carrot is probably a blessed sacrament. Although I'm going to add, there are certain acceptable foods with Fangs, and one of them is Blue Bunny ice cream. Bunny Tracks ice cream is certainly a holy meal for those of you who like ice cream. So, but the carrot is objecting in some of the early pictures of Fangs because the carrot is not religiously corrupted. So, so there's that. I don't know. There's going to be plenty of schisms. That's kind of part of the whole point. Cranky Elder God is like, I when we talked about the Gospel of Fangs, I said, let's have a bunch of people just write Gospels of Fangs, and we'll try to reconcile them later, despite the contradictions. So it'll illustrate another point. So. But yes, the carrot is the only pure vegetable. So there you go. I'm sure we'll get pushback on that, and that'll be great. Hey, John, good to see you. allowed to have options and be free. Yeah, I mean, you have to have free thinking and stuff like that. I'm just I'm not a fan of dogmatism, okay, in any form, whether it's political or religious, because it doesn't allow you to rethink an issue. Issues have to be constantly rethunk and gone over to get better morality out of them. New information has to drive our thinking on a subject too. I've been lucky enough in life to adult only necessarily, not dedicatedly. I'm quite capable of being childlike and ish when appropriate. Okay, very good. You've demonstrated that before, Fred, though. There's something about this story that sounds like Elder Scrolls mythology, maybe. The holy unsanctified carrot, yes. Yes. It's a divine mystery. I'm going to throw the mystery card out there a lot with Fangs. So, it's a mystery to be uncovered. Go seek Fangs and his wisdom, and then maybe he'll reveal it to you. Yeah, I know the Dutch made the carrot orange. I'm Dutch. Okay, I'm quarter Dutch. So my one grandmother was 100% Dutch because her parents got off the boat. So, and they got off the boat with 3 of their kids, and they ended up having like 12. So, and my grandmother is the youngest. So, so, chocolate bunnies are also holy as well. Any food in a bunny form is holy, or references a bunny is holy. That's why I said like blue bunny ice cream, and in particular, the bunny tracks ice cream is holy. So, hey, it's Daily Atheist Morning Show. That's a mouthful to say. I'm just going to call you the damn show. But welcome, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it, man. Oh, yes, the carrot is considered a phallus symbol, and yeah, so it is a phallus symbol. We got to find an equally appropriate other side to that. So, okay, the turnip, with or without a truck to fall out of, is also pure, according to the Gospel of Me. Okay, see, this is what I want. Okay, I want a multitude of different gospels and understanding of Fangs because we don't really have a holy scripture yet. We will. We're working on that, and then we can have controversy and different interpretations of that scripture. I'm trying to write something that can be interpreted multiple different ways, so, to illustrate that point. So. Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm 6'4", and that's probably from the Dutch side of things. I do believe, and maybe the Dutch people in the room can confirm this, but as I understand it, in Europe, the Dutch people are the tallest people in Europe, and that height comes from them. So I can't remember where I heard that, but maybe that's not true. But yes. But most of the people that I've met tall here in West Michigan are, when I ask them what their answer is, oh, I'm Dutch. Yeah. So, oh, there's that. Is the tallest average in the world? Okay. Yeah, I kind of figured. But, I've been corrupted. I've got other things besides the Dutch in there. But yeah, there's a guy down the road from me, like 12 miles away. He's 6'10", and he's like half Dutch. So, so it's like, yeah, it's a thing. So that's where I got my height from. So, yes, Hope College. My son played for, my oldest used to play for Alma. And so they played Hope College every year. So, the anchor and all that stuff. Yes. So, but yeah, my son played them in football every year for like 4 straight years when he was playing for Alma. So yeah, I got to see the whole Dutch. And if you go to Holland, Michigan, they lean into the Dutch thing. Definitely, they have windmills and tulips and all that stuff every year. So they got to be so see over the dikes. Okay. Yes, very Calvinistic. Very much so, Leela. Um, it's funny because Alma has religious origins too, but it's more like a Scottish Calvinism, and then Hope is more of a Dutch Calvinism, and you can. I think that's like the only real difference. so, so. Mm. Funny video of a tall Chinese visiting, finding out he's only average and all things are fit for. See, because I've always wanted to go to the Netherlands, John, because I figured because they are taller, they fit things for tall people a little bit better. Like I have my problems here in the United States. Like I'll go to certain places and it's like, damn, I'm barely, going under the doorway here. So yes. But yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. Yes. Oh, but yeah, the Calvinists, because when I did my research for my thesis back when I was in seminary, I actually used Calvin College, now Calvin University, as one of the libraries I visited. I visited like 3 Christian schools as libraries, including Asbury's and then Calvin, and I can't remember. Actually, I think I went to Ferris down the road here, which I later graduated from. And used their library as well to do some research for that. So I got very acquainted with Calvin's campus and Hope and Alma and all the little Division III schools in Michigan. So you should probably move to the Netherlands for sort of not bumping your head on door frames. Me too. Oh, really? Longer beds? Germans like them? You're more of a Calvinist. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, me too. I was never a Calvinist, but Calvin College, because I was researching into the pastoral epistles, um, I went to Calvin to try to find some different commentaries and things like that than what I was getting at Asbury, and I found some, um, and I used that in my thesis, and that's where that whole incident for me with deconversion was one of the interesting starting points because it's when I realized, there's a really damn good case to say that Paul didn't write these. Okay. And, that Paul didn't write the pastoral epistles, First, Second Timothy, and Titus is kind of started there. Like I remember being in Calvin's library, and I think that's where I actually had that thought. Like, damn, there's like a real good case that this is pseudo Paul. So, and that's why in my thesis I had to write. I'm assuming one of my assumptions is that I assume that the author of this book, First Timothy, is Paul, which is a bad assumption. It's probably not true. So, so, but I was trying to make the case that First Timothy was Paul's ecclesiology, much like Romans is his soteriology, and if you hold a conservative view, that holds water. But if you actually hold an intellectual, scholarly view, it doesn't. So Calvinism seems to be somewhat diverse among Christians. Yes. Yes, it is. There's a reason why there's a Dutch Reformed Church, and I think there's a Scottish Reformed Church. It's like Calvinism seems to have this like regional flavors, depending on where it's at. So Dutch were sleeping in a sitting called the bedstead to sleep. Oh, I wondered how, because they've always been tall. And so probably the standard beds that were made weren't good enough. So they made chairs. I could see that. I could see that. Yeah, there's like Dutch Reformed Christians everywhere. The thing I run into the most here in Michigan is when I travel into the southwest part of Michigan. That's what you'll run into is Dutch Reformed a lot, especially in the Grand Rapids, Holland area. But it's elsewhere too. Get more to the east side of the state, you'll see the Scots, the Scottish Calvinism, and then you've got, oh my goodness, there's whole flavors of different religions in Michigan because Michigan is so much like Germany, the Netherlands, and England, and the northern part, like the UP, is very much like Scandinavia without the fjords. But it's like you get that feeling that they brought their religions with them. So, yeah, it became a Dutch Reform mecca. Holland is. It still is. Hope College is still kind of the center of that, although I'm not sure. Oh, small closets to sleep in? Yipe. A chair? Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, I get you'd have to adapt. I get that. See, this is why I do this, the live streaming. I learned so much new stuff. So, try not to let your assumption and opinions get in the way of my reality. Not always successful, I think. I'm not always successful at that either. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I double check myself so many times now when I'm researching something. I mean, one of you guys gave me this idea of this defiant disorder, I don't know, a couple streams ago. I think it was the autism stream. And I want to thank you for that because I spent a good chunk of my Sunday deep diving that shit. But not having my assumption, like if somebody gives me new information, it's like I don't assume it's correct or incorrect, but I want to look at it. And when I come to my own conclusions, I'm like, okay, how I look more at a probability that I'm right, not absolute certainty. I think absolutes come from religion, and you got to be what about that? So. To explain it is not easy. Okay, I'll have to. Bedstead. Okay, that's got to be sleeping standing up. I mean, I know the concept of sleeping at an angle has also been around for a long time. Um, like people will angle their beds, but sleeping standing up probably because the bed isn't long enough. That's very interesting. When I was a kid, I got to a point where my regular size bed, I had to sleep kitty corner, like from one corner to another in order to fit. It's why I switched from a queen bed to a king for the same reason. Like I have a king size bed because anything else is too small. So anyway. I don't know. Only thing I got from the Dutch was part of their language. Afrikaans. Unfortunately, not much in the height department. Yeah, it doesn't. I'm not like 6'9" and 10 like a lot of Dutch people, and it's probably that English, German, Scandinavian part of me keeping me down a little bit. Height is like one of those height, eye color, hair colors, like so many multiple different genetic things, markers. It's ridiculous. Short bunk where you pull up your knees. Yeah. I don't know if I could sleep like that. I don't know. I do think about angling my bed all the time, though. Okay. So that's a short bunk where you pull up your knees. Wow. I mean, I did a study on once, one of my autistic deep dives of how people dealt with the cold before central heating. And one of the things they did is they created these bunk beds that were enclosed. So you had like multiple layers of keeping body heat in. And I found that fascinating because, and that's why the rich would wear like nice winter clothes. Like the proper clothing for the weather was a big thing back then. So reality is overrated. It's mostly for those who can't handle things. Oh, eventually you can sleep in any position. Yes, yes, you can. I I joke, but I have literally when I'm at work, like I will literally just like lean back in my chair and put my head forward and take a 10-minute nap, and it. I'm very actually very versatile, but like I get it, but I like it's there's times Dreborg. Yeah, my the folks that are Dutch in my ancestry come from a town in the middle north of Netherlands. Like it's the northern part, but it's away from the coast. And it's a larger town. I can't remember, but that's where they came from. They got tired of the crowds and they moved to Michigan. So came through New York Harbor and kept going west until they got to Michigan. Found a place that looked like home and settled down. So let's see. Don't know. I'm kind of running out of time too. I no longer need drugs. I can imagine greatness and grandiosity with little effort. Okay, there you go. Yeah, yeah. It's been a good deep dive today, guys. Yeah, but I think being this has been a stream about being open minded, realizing that your own viewpoints need constant reevaluation. You're not living under an authoritative dictatorship anymore that's self-imposed and self-made up. We also got some theology of fangs worked out, so that's good. That's always a good stream when we do that. But yeah, I do have to run, folks. Last time I stayed a little bit too long, and so I want to make sure I get out of here on time to get ready for work. But thank you all for stopping by. I hope something that's said today um, helped you in some way. I understand the frustration with my fellow atheists. I will say that, and I hope an understanding of staying away from dogmatism of any form is helpful, because I don't think that dogmatism in any form is helpful anymore. And I want to thank everybody who donated to the channel. I think we reached a point where I think I've got 11 total. So there will be a hat reveal Saturday. And we'll see if we can get the rest of the super chats necessary to do a stream on Friday where I will let people into StreamYard. That's very anxiety inducing to me, so I'm going to make you work for it. But that'll be not this Friday, but next Friday if it happens. So, but yes, I'm heading into the direction of trying to invite more people into the streams. Me and Earl have had a couple of good streams together, and so that's always beneficial. And I want to thank all of you for making this channel what it is. The community here is very awesome. I appreciate all of you and what you do. So today's chat's been all over. Hit the like button, folks. Yes. Yes. I don't know where Earl is today, but she's a dental hygienist, so she might be working late today. So hit the like button. Yes. Love the fangs. All right. Thanks, everybody, for stopping by. I appreciate all of you. As always, live your best life. You only get one go around and then it's over. So you want to take all your time, your money, and your opportunities and use them on yourself and the people you love and care for to make this a better world. You'll be happier if you do. And don't waste them on the trappings of religion and faith, because that's a dead end. I speak from experience. And as always, folks, thanks for stopping by. And I will catch you all next time, and that'll be Saturday. So we'll see you then.